So hi there. My name is Michael Mayo. I work at Rackspace, and my citizenship is California. And I was invited to speak here just a couple of days ago, and I thought about. I stayed up till about 2 in the morning last night working on a presentation, and then threw it all away and just have one slide here. What I was going to talk about was all the stuff that Rackspace is talking about right now that's important not just to gaming but to any sort of apps that reach a large audience, is that it's a good idea to host your applications on an open cloud so you can easily change providers or run your own cloud yourself. I also wanted to talk about some knowledge resources we have at Rackspace Cloud U. That site can talk about this sort of stuff way better than I can. And there was a company called Major League Gaming that chose Rackspace because we offered hybrid cloud options. So they had some applications that had very high I/O and security requirements that really weren't well suited to traditional cloud computing. So the takeaway from that was going to be that if you go with an open cloud, you can easily run it in your own data centers or third-party data centers such as Rackspace or HP Cloud or whatever. And you could easily run a hybrid cloud to where you can have the benefits of dedicated hardware for your high-performance needs. But you can read about that stuff online here. So today, I guess I wanted to show you something that I've been working on at Rackspace. First at Rackspace, I built the Rackspace Cloud iPhone app, and then the iPad app, and then our Android app. And those were apps to manage your cloud infrastructure, create servers, reboot them, deploy them with Chef, whatever monitor your servers, like all those kind of things. And then once that hit a more mature level, I moved to our social media team. We have a team of people that monitor Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and LinkedIn 24/7, watching to see what customers are saying about us. It turns out that, Rackspace is our main sell to everyone is that we offer fanatical support. That's how Rackspace differentiates themselves from all the other hosting providers. And part of that is, while we have people manning phones 24/7 and live chat online, we also have people watching Twitter. And I made a tool, or me and my team made a tool called Tweetmon that looks at what's going on Twitter and gives us a nice way to react to our customers and see what they're saying. So this app, excuse the poor design, it's an internal app right now, and we haven't put any design resources to it yet. But basically, we're constantly watching Twitter, and we can reply to people, retweet to them as our company account at Rackspace. We can have our own personal notes about it that there are none present here, but you would see, like, if we see a customer tweet and he often has problems with our cloud load balancers, we'll make a note of that. We build sort of a dossier on our customers that help us help them faster in the future, so that if we don't remember this person typically has load balancer problems, we have a note that tells us that, so we can route it to the right person quicker. We also added Google Translate because we're seeing that cloud computing is growing around the world at a very fast rate. We hired someone who speaks Spanish natively. No one speaks any Chinese or Mandarin, any of that in our group, but so we use Google Translate and hope it's right. It's probably not. we never reply with what comes out of that. But yeah, so this is a tool we've made, and also I've built a mobile app for it, and this is kind of what's cool for us is a lot of us, our team is kind of small. We're about, I don't know how many people now, maybe like 8 people or so, something like that. So we have this iPhone app. Sorry, that sounded weird. We have this iPhone app, and it uses Apple's push notification service so that whenever anyone is not working, they're still going to get pinged about what's going on. So they're kind of always working. It's great. So yeah, and this tool offers all the same sorts of things. I mean, I can sit around and demo it, but that's probably not that interesting since this isn't something you can use at this time. But we've found this really useful to keep an eye on social media 24/7 and engage our customers. And we've found that it's really helpful to build our own tools around it instead of buying something off the shelf. And if anyone has any questions about that or about our cloud or mobile app development in general, I'm mostly an iOS coder more than a public speaker. I'm happy to answer anything. So is there anything you guys want to talk about? Yeah.
So you work for Elastic Cloud?
No, I don't know what Elastic Cloud's about. I work for Rackspace. I think that was like a placeholder for the topic.
Are you Mike?
Yeah, I'm Mike. I'm Mike from California. Yes, I work at Rackspace.
Looking for anything in terms of people?
We're hiring all the time.
Relationships with other companies?
Oh yeah, we have I used to be, and I've kind of hopped around because we never had a mobile apps group. I was the only mobile apps developer at Rackspace. So at first I work in our corporate development group because they flew out to California a lot. But while there, we built a cloud tools partner program, and I think it's tools.rackspacecloud.com. It may have moved, but yeah, we're constantly looking for businesses that provide cool tools to run on our cloud or OpenStack clouds. And yeah, in fact, we've even bought a few of them. I think we recently acquired a small startup called Mailgun, and now we're offering an API-driven email service, which is pretty handy for developers. So yeah, so I checked that out. Yes, or you in the back. Well, I'm not an expert at that in our cloud side, but one thing we found with Major League Gaming, who I mentioned earlier, and a lot of other companies, is that they're not really comfortable putting highly sensitive data in the cloud because you have other customers on the same computer. While it's secured, if there is any sort of exploit, you have a problem, right? So what we see with those kind of customers is that they often go with a hybrid approach. So they have dedicated hardware that no one else has any sort of access to whatsoever, and they burst out compute needs to the cloud as needed. So they kind of use a mix, and that seems to be the most efficient for those. Because otherwise, you don't want to. I mean, it's kind of like designing a freeway. Like you have to design it for the worst case. So if you go up 880 at 3 in the morning, there's a lot more lanes than you need. But at 5 o'clock, there aren't enough lanes. So. And that's sort of a decent metaphor for the cloud, I guess. Like with the hybrid approach, you can build a few lanes and then get your extra lanes when you need them. So yeah. And then yeah. Yes, you. Well, Rackspace and Amazon, they're kind of like the top two clouds right now, right? And Amazon, by a long shot, is the most popular cloud. The big difference is, from my perspective, before I was ever a Rackspace employee, I was a user of both Amazon and Rackspace. And the two big differences, the two things that differentiate Rackspace from Amazon, from my perspective, is one, well, I guess three things now. One is Rackspace's cloud is open source, which means if you develop applications to AWS, you're stuck with AWS, like your deployment scripts and all those sorts of things. The way you deploy your application. Your code may not be any different, but the way you configure your machines, et cetera, is going to be AWS specific. Whereas with Rackspace now, it runs on OpenStack. So that's an open source cloud that other people are now hosting. So if you get sick of Rackspace, you're not locked into that vendor. You can easily switch over to HP's cloud, which is also OpenStack, or whoever else is hosting it. So that's one thing. Also, at least with Rackspace, you have the option of getting dedicated gear. So if you find that like your I/O is weak in cloud computing and you need something more performant, you have that option without having to change vendors again. So you see that actually a popular code hosting service for developers is called GitHub, and everyone's putting their code on GitHub now. It's amazing. And they're hosted at Rackspace now, but before that they were hosted on EngineYard, which was like a cloud-only provider. They weren't on AWS, but they switched to Rackspace, and they're using a mixture of cloud computing with big-time, heavy, dedicated machines because GitHub needs that kind of performance, cloning Git repos and forking and all the sort of stuff they're doing. So that's one thing, you get that extra capability. And the last thing is that Rackspace's culture is built around support. So anytime you have a problem, hopefully you don't. I think most competent developers don't usually need to talk to their hosting provider. But when you do, Rackspace is there. Whereas with Amazon, you can get support, but you pay a lot of money for it, which maybe is okay for your budget or whatever, but you do have to pay for it, or you're sent off to forums. So, which can probably answer your question, but it might not. So whereas at Rackspace, you can actually get to a person easily and without paying extra money. So that's kind of the three things to me. Yes?
I'm KRS Murthy. The Twitter handle said, "Green is us." Yes. Does it mean that your Rackspace is green? No. Okay. And yeah, if it is, even otherwise, I want to ask a question. What are the metrics in terms of being green? That's a good idea to do anyway, whether it's meant to be that or not. That you have. If you don't know, I can tell you the metrics. You can give me the answer.
So green is us. That's my personal Twitter handle, and it was a color a friend of mine as a kid invented, and I didn't want an AOL name with numbers in it back in the 90s, so I picked that. But as far as what Rackspace is doing as far as being green, there's all kinds of stuff. I can't answer all of it. I know our headquarters is LEED certified. Our headquarters in San Antonio, Graham Weston, our founder, they bought this abandoned mall in San Antonio, and then they tore it apart, and then they recycled every single part of it. So like the meeting rooms are like, I had a meeting last week in Dillard's, and then you got like they left the store signs and everything. So I try to be green, but as far as our data center stuff, I don't know that much about it, honestly. Sorry. So yes, I'll walk around with the mic a little more.
Thanks. How would you describe the transition from AWS to Rackspace OpenStack in terms of deployment? You said you use Chef at the minute.
I've used Chef casually. I wouldn't call myself a Chef expert.
Okay, but is that how you do things at the minute for deployment?
At the moment, I don't deploy anything.
Okay. Have you tried to transition from AWS to OpenStack before?
I've heard people say it's challenging. I haven't personally done a migration between the two. Like everywhere I've gone, like everywhere I've worked or every project I've been on, people tend to just pick one and go with it. So someone recently, maybe it was someone from VMware or something, said that any customer that goes to AWS is lost forever, because once you enter, or any cloud, once you enter that ecosystem, like it's so hard to get out that you just stay with whatever provider you have. That's what people are saying. I mean, and that's what I've seen myself, but that's. Yes, and I love Splunk. I've been using it since like 2003.
Well, from our experience, we're trying to grow the base of our cloud services, and it's.
Are you on AWS now, or?
Pretty much, and it's proving to be challenging sometimes when Amazon is down.
Right.
So then you want to take ownership, and it makes sense when you say you want to be part of a non-proprietary environment.
Exactly.
And you want to take leads. So for that, I give you credit.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can't like give you any immediate advice on a transition, but I can definitely like get you in touch with people at Rackspace that have gone through this 1,000 times.
We've gone through with Cord Campbell, and he's been at our office.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So, and then you go to him. This is fun.
Thank you. So Rackspace doesn't have a data center in China. So do you have any
Not
plan?
yet.
No. So if not, or just for some reason, or
Well, we started out with we're slowly expanding. So we started out, I believe, our first cloud data center was in Dallas, and we had just one, and then we expanded to Chicago, and then London, and so we're working our way around the world. I believe we're hitting Australia soon. I think we have plans in Hong Kong. I'm not sure, but eventually we'll have data centers all over the world. Think about the West Coast coming up. Like there are several. I don't know the exact plans on that, but we will have a presence in China for sure. We have an office in China already. I'm not sure what's going on there, but that's not an insult. I just don't know what's going on with our
yeah,
China
because
strategy.
as a developer, we kind of get spoiled by the cloud service here. But think about it, to host some service in China, it's I try to search around most.
One thing I remember, I used to be in like the initial OpenStack group that kind of launched it, and we spent a lot of time talking to NTT Docomo. I guess that's in Japan. I don't know if they're in China as well. I don't know too much, but I believe we have several partners in China also working on hosting OpenStack clouds. So you could. I just don't know who. I haven't kept up with that stuff too much lately. I've been coding.
Okay, thank you.
So. There we go. Move back to the center.
Okay, so I see actually the Rackspace is a big supporter for the OpenStack, and
Yes.
Our latest investment is Mirantis, and basically the service provider for OpenStack.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Welcome
So
aboard.
yeah, actually I have tracked the trend for a while. So my question is that what do you see the opportunities brought by the OpenStack, and what kind of the challenges you see?
Well, I mean, I guess if you look at the market, Amazon Web Services, they're far and away the largest cloud. So there's this risk and this fear I have, I guess, that eventually everyone that like they dominate, and then there's only one provider, and then we all suffer to whatever Amazon's whims are, which maybe will be good, maybe won't be. With OpenStack, there's, Rackspace is the second place cloud, but then there are all kinds of companies that want to participate in this. HP is getting really big in it. I believe IBM is, like, lots of companies are, FedEx, and various companies or want to deploy their own clouds too, and not perhaps rely on Amazon. So with OpenStack, I think we can have more than just one company driving it, and we can have all of us work together and come together and build something that's a standard that, we'll see how that turns out.
Thank you.
But yeah, as far as a challenge, I can't think of, the only challenge I see is typically with large standards bodies and stuff like that, progress tends to be slower. You don't see HTTP change that often, but whereas something like a proprietary product is driven by one company and one set of management, so they can make changes faster. But that's not to say OpenStack moves slowly, but that's something that the community should watch out for, in my opinion. So, yeah, thanks.
So you talked about the OpenStack. What about that? Can you do some comparison between OpenStack and the CloudStack?
OpenStack and CloudStack.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about CloudStack. I mean, I've heard of it, but I can't give you a good comparison. Honestly, I wish I could, but
Okay.
I think that's one of those questions where I'd say to Google it because there are a lot of comparisons of various clouds. I see a lot of articles comparing Amazon to everything else. So that's going to be a better resource than me. I don't know enough about CloudStack to say anything meaningful.
Now maybe I can chime in a little bit on. So I think with the OpenStack, it's kind of like the open source movement where I involved about a dozen years ago when open source Linux first started out. At the time, basically, people want to know why. Basically, go back to all the Unix days, right? Because Unix was movement for Unix is supposed to be portable, transportable. So none of these big computer companies can lock the customer in. And so all the basically the computer vendors start saying, I'm going to support Unix. And then Unix got forked. You got HP UX, IBM AIX, Digital Unix, you name it, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the application providers. I have to do how many times of porting? Wow. So everybody's looking at who's got the large market share. So they end up just pointing to whoever has the large market share. And open source, when Linus came up with the idea, was like, basically, if I can control the kernel, basically at the base level, it can be standardized, so everybody can differentiate on top of it. And that's where we get a lot of distribution companies like Red Hat, SUSE, Turbo Linux, and they all start to differentiate. I mean, it's still based on open source, so you can still differentiate and add value. And eventually the market consolidate. Red Hat becomes kind of the de facto distribution.
That's a good point.
OpenStack is kind of like that
It's
kind
like
of movement
Linux.
again.
I mean, it's like Linux and like Amazon and the other providers before. They're HP. They're like Solaris and HPUX and all these other proprietary Unixes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting
So
comparison.
by me bringing up all these examples, I start to date myself. So if you've been in this industry for 20 plus years, then you see a couple of cycles of this. Any other questions?
Yeah, here's another one. We're getting close to out of time, and you guys are probably hungry.
Earlier this morning, the lady from Google mentioned that Google support mobile developers with their cloud storage, cloud SQL, and cloud whatever. And I'm wondering, what does Rackspace provide to mobile developers?
Well, we offer the same. We offer the same
same
thing in terms of cloud storage. We built some libraries to talk to them in languages for mobile. Like I built so our storage product is called Cloud Files, and I built an SDK for Cloud Files for iOS developers. I need to update it.
Do you host those mobile apps in your?
Well, sure, we host in it. I mean, a mobile app is not really that much different than a web app. I mean, it's really
That's
just
true.
the format, right? So, I mean, a mobile app's going to send back JSON instead of HTML. So it's really all the same stuff. It's kind of how you market it and what special things do you provide to differentiate. I haven't looked at Google's offering yet, but Rackspace, we try to build tools to help mobile developers talk to our cloud. But I think we have a lot more in the works for that, and more needs to come. Honestly, to me, the most impressive mobile developer cloud platform I've seen it's not a Rackspace thing or Amazon or Google. It's was recently bought by Facebook, and it's called Parse.com. And Parse lets you write simple code that automatically sends your data to the cloud. So if I'm making a game and I make like a high score, I can just easily send it like it's a regular object in code, like I'm doing it locally, and then it just sends and syncs. That's really cool. I'd like to see more stuff like that, but I don't know what Google's doing. But we have stuff in the works. I just can't speak too well to it yet.
So you're saying that you're working on more support in terms of development to the app developers, besides storage and besides analytics.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the things we offer now are useful to app developers, but they're not catered to app developers, right? So, but we're working on stuff now. I just don't have enough detail on that to share. And not even that it's secret. I don't know enough at this time. So we have one guy, and then we'll do you next.
Yeah. Do you work out of the San Francisco office, and do you have any
Yes.
Android programmers in your group?
Yeah, we do. So I wrote the first Android app, and now there's a mobile apps team. Or the guy in front's he's next. But yeah, so there is now a mobile apps team at Rackspace that took over the apps that I initially wrote. So yeah, there are one or two Android developers, one or two iOS developers, and then design and product management around that. So there's actually some really cool polished stuff coming in terms of the Rackspace cloud apps that I think looks great. So yeah, but yeah, and I work out of my house and the San Francisco office.
Okay. So I think we have time for one last question, and then people already start lining up for lunch. And lunch will be served
you guys
here
gotta
with
eat.
pizza, and then
Where is
we'll
the
take a break,
lunch?
and we all come back at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
KR Smursi again. I'm going to ask the question. You don't have to answer to save
Okay.
time.
Okay.
We can talk offline.
All right.
There are two kinds of metrics I want to understand from Rackspace.
Okay.
Number one is your security. Not simply saying it's good, but some metrics I want to understand.
Okay.
Security features. And also on the elasticity for bandwidth. How are you going to define what kind of elasticity you have in terms of user bandwidth required?
You mean like how much is available?
No, there's metrics. I mean, everything is metrics based. You cannot say good, bad. Doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't have to answer now. Okay.
Okay.
Let people eat
Yeah,
their lunch.
let's
We
talk
can talk
about that
offline.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will bring in more pizzas, I think, in the back. So feel free to take a break, and then we're going to start back up at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you.